Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 124 of Crunch Time with the N326 duo. I'm Sam Godsey, your host today, and with me is Tanner Dislin. And Tanner, we got our first reoccurring guest. For the longtime listeners, my brother is back, Eric. He was on the March Madness episode last year. I think he actually won between us three, so that was kind of embarrassing. But welcome back, Eric. Give me your thoughts on how much you're looking forward to March Madness coming up here in a couple days with the first four.
Yeah, glad to be back on. It's nice to have that 1-0 dub against you guys. So hopefully go 2-0 this year on winning it all. But no, super excited. Sucks that my Hogs didn't make it. We had pretty high hopes this year. A lot of Final Four bound. I almost bought an Airbnb to go to Scottsdale, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, always excited. I'm actually taking off Friday and I work remote, so may or not have multiple games on in the background on Thursday, but it's always a good weekend.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I think key to note here, we are a podcast full of losers. The Hawkeye's not in the field. Hawk's not in the field. Yeah, not great, although we weren't expecting to be good, and we were absolutely correct on that. But yeah, Eric, thanks so much for coming on again. We're coming off a great weekend of basketball too. I mean, I gotta ask, where do you stand on this? Because I feel like there are some people out there who say their favorite part is the conference tournaments because you get the anticipation of the bracket, and you get the good games at the end. We certainly got some good basketball and some fireworks in the ACC, bid stealer in the ACC, which is some pretty cool stuff there.
Absolutely. So I just need your first overall thoughts looking at this bracket as selection Sunday occurred. First topic. Were there any big snubs for y'all coming into this one? There's a lot of talk around the country with a particular team, but Eric, talk to me.
Yeah, I think one that's pretty popular that everyone is talking about that probably shouldn't have got in was Virginia, which I can agree with that. I think
No
some of
one
the
wants to watch that team.
yeah, no, I mean, the snubs are probably. I mean, you can name St. John's, obviously Indiana State. I mean, I'm not a fan of the whole net rankings, but I know that they were like 28 or 9, which to not make it in is pretty absurd. I think one of the biggest ones for me was Oklahoma. The fact that they didn't have any quad 2, 3, or 4 losses is pretty insane, especially being in the Big 12. I know that their quad 1 was pretty insane, but they also played like 16 quad 1 games, which was just like absurd for a normal team. So I'd say probably that was the biggest one. Obviously, St. John's, you'd love Rick Pitino to get in there. Just his first year there, he's a stud. But
Yeah.
those are my bigger two.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree on Indiana State. We have this whole conversation of is it worth it, right? I mean, is it worth it for big schools to schedule some of these good mid-major teams? And from everything the committee is doing, it seems like it is most definitely not worth it. And that sucks because how do you expect Indiana State to pick up those big time wins when there's just no incentive for any Power 5 or Power 6, I guess, in college basketball schools to go in and schedule these mid majors, which sucks so much. So I'm looking at Indiana State because I just want that narrative to change. That it's like, you know what? Let's get the best basketball teams together in all these tournaments, in the Battle for Atlantis, and out in Vegas, wherever all these tournaments are. Let's get an Indiana State in there. Why? Because they're a damn good basketball team. Don't let them not play just because they're Indiana State. They play in the Missouri Valley. Screw that. Let them play because they are a damn good basketball team. We missed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar putting up numbies in March Madness, which sucks. But that's my snub because they're just playing into this narrative and further ostracizing the smaller schools, the mid majors, and it sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with both of y'all. I didn't realize how good of a resume Oklahoma had, especially playing in that difficult Big 12 conference. And then, of course, the supposed March darling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But those are Indiana State's definitely the one I was looking at. I think something with snubs, you see the teams that get in, and everyone's looking at that Virginia in that playing because again, I'll say it again, no one wants to watch that team. But so there are some subs as there are every year. Did y'all see any missed seeds here? I know there's a couple that are being talked about nationally, but Eric, what were your kind of thoughts on the actual seeding? Did someone get rated a little higher or a little lower?
You know, overall, it wasn't too crazy for me. I one thing that always baffles me, and I know it's been a thing forever, is the fact that there's a playing game for a 10 seed. I know that there's like multiple, 10 seeds and teams that like are on that edge and last four in and everything like that. But that's always baffled me as to why it's like a 10 seed and not a lower seed that does playing games. Um, but I think Gonzaga is probably one that I thought was higher. Um, them and St. Mary's both coming from the same conference, both being a 5 seed. I thought one of them would take a higher and one take a lower, but that's probably the only one that kind of stood out to me. I mean, there's some just, in my opinion, overrated teams overall, but I think they did a pretty good job for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree on that Gonzaga St. Mary's. I mean, they're in the same damn conference. They played twice this year. St. Mary's beat them twice. How on earth are they the same seed? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think there are a few underseeded teams. I'm looking at New Mexico. I mean, I think Clemson just got screwed by playing in a criminally underseeded team. Spoiler alert: I got New Mexico winning that game. I also think James Madison is incredibly underseeded. I mean, the most wins in college basketball, and they're sitting at the 12th seed. While you look at someone like Duquesne, who, I mean, came out of nowhere, won the A10, not a great conference, but they're sitting at the 11.
Right.
And James Madison at 12. I don't really get that either. So I mean, they're always going to have these, but particularly some of the seeds here, I'm just left scratching my head a little bit. But yeah, overall not too bad. But those are some of the ones that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at this East region. You got to look at Iowa State here at the 2 seed. I know, absolutely dominating Houston in that tough Big 12 tournament championship. You wonder how much of an emphasis a conference championship really matters in the grand scheme of these seedings. Because then you got a team like UNC who got beat by NC State, who wasn't even in the picture for getting in this tournament before winning the ACC. But then you have Iowa State dominated the number one team all season in Houston, and they're not even the highest 2 seed and have a absolute gauntlet in the East region. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we had some listeners submit some questions, kind of looking at it from the outside view. First one comes from Jaron Kirkendall. He wants to know which team is most likely to get upset first round. Tanner, we'll start with you here.
I kind of mentioned one that I'm really looking at that New Mexico Clemson, although I'm not even sure if you can call it an upset because I think right now New Mexico's favorite. So that one might not qualify right there. Looking elsewhere around, I'm liking Oregon coming off of that Pac-12 conference championship. It's always weird, right? Do the conference champions, do they ride the wave and keep playing, or do they end up falling flat on their face with almost the better part of a week off? But I do like Oregon to come in and beat South Carolina. So I'll go with the Ducks.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I actually have that one. One team I was looking forward to picking going far until they got matched up was Wisconsin. Wisconsin started the year pretty hot, doing well, and then lost. I can't remember the exact, but it was like 7 of 10 and should have won probably 5 of them. And like you said, JMU is a hot team. They can shoot the ball well. I mean, my biggest thing is the tournament, you love defense, but when a team is hot, I mean, that's where you see those lower seeds, making a run. So that's probably the biggest likely to get upset. I think I could have JMU going far in those first couple, possibly Duke in that next one. And Duke's just not been super consistent. So I like JMU with a couple upsets. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty popular one around the country. For me, I'm looking at this Gonzaga McNeese matchup in the Midwest region. Will Wade obviously had his stint at LSU, went down there.
Cheater,
Got
cheater. Sorry.
yeah,
That was weird.
but he's building a impressive program. I think they have 31 wins on the season. Don't be surprised if McNeese walks in and upsets the Zags. Kind of a depleted Zags from what we're used to seeing. Next question comes from Carol Godsey, my mom, and Eric's mom. Erich, who's your favorite underdog here?
Favorite underdog. Man, I think I gotta stick right with JMU. I know I said most likely upsetting Wisconsin, and I kind of briefly went into, that next matchup being Duke. And Duke just, I thought they were gonna have a really great year. Again, not to bring up the Hogs again, but they did lose to the Hogs. They lost to North Carolina twice, and I think that's like their bread and butter, what they look forward to every year. So I just don't know if they have that drive. So that's my favorite underdog going into this March Madness tournament.
I think you may be underselling Kyle Filipowski's ability to heal as quickly as humanly possible to come back from a devastating leg injury and come back and be able to.
Yeah.
He was a windmill dunk. I've never seen anything like it. But yeah, I mean that's definitely a great one. Again, underseeded, man. The Dukes were underseeded, but I mean, looking at this, another one I'm going to throw out: Grand Canyon, the Antelopes. They, kind of an up and down season for the Antelopes, but Tyon Grant Foster, player for Grand Canyon. He's going to be the best player on the floor in the first round, maybe even the second round as well. So Grand Canyon, I think they're set up. They might be able to beat St. Mary's, and then look to Alabama, a team that's really struggled defensively throughout the year. Maybe they can pick up two and head to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a matchup that's going to be very interesting. For my favorite underdog, guys, stay local. I'm going with the Drake Bulldogs out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Beat that impressive Indiana State team in the championship. They got a favorable matchup against Washington State. And second round, they could be facing Iowa State, which is always a interesting time when two in-state schools meet in such a big tournament, and you are seen as kind of the little brother in the area. So I like Drake. That's definitely my favorite underdog here. Next question also comes from our mom. What will be the biggest upset in all of the tourney? Tanner, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh man, I feel like we've kind of hit a lot of them. A lot of these early questions upset, focused on the upsets. But I'm gonna piggyback off you, Sam. I think the whole world right now is looking at Iowa State with those deer in headlights. Like, dang, this team really beat Houston by 28. Here come the Drake Bulldogs. Tucker DeVries, learn the name. He did not have a good showing last year. I mean, he was ice cold against Miami, and Drake was winning at halftime, kind of choked a second half lead. Don't think that'll happen again. Iowa State, obviously, great defensive basketball team, but all it takes is one player to get hot. And DeVries is definitely that type of player. Bulldogs moving past the Cyclones into the Sweet 16.
Erich?
All right, so I'll probably have to agree with Tanner regarding Drake. Like I briefly said before I cut out, the conference tournaments just, I feel like as cool as they are for, school morale and being all hyped and everything, it just doesn't really matter. I'd much rather lose first round of my conference tournament and then go to the Sweet 16 Elite 8. And I know that,
can confirm
can reopen a few wounds there, but as a person that's done the opposite, it's like the most electric thing to get to that second weekend. So I think Iowa State, everyone thinks they're hot and they killed Houston, but I just don't think it matters super much. So,
yeah, I think that's a pretty common one that people are picking. I'm going to go crazy. Give me Samford upsetting the Jayhawks in round one. I think Kansas is not as healthy as people are saying. We had Dickinson and McCullough sit out, and we saw how bad that team got beat. I think they're going to be a little rusty. And it's not the typical Kansas. I think they are very overseeded in this one. So give me Samford shocking the nation, becoming March Madness sweethearts. Give me Samford over Kansas.
Yeah, and I think this was something I said on a earlier podcast. We were talking about which seeds are we looking at that could possibly get upset. If you're looking for a 1 or 2 seed that I think has the possibility of losing round one, the one I think has the best possibility is Marquette to Western Kentucky. If one falls, I think it'll be the Golden Eagle. But
yeah, absolutely. So now we kind of hit the overarching bracket. Let's dive a little deeper into these individual regions. We'll kick it off with the East region, with UConn being the number 1 seed here. Erich, what are the matchups or potential matchups you are looking forward to most in the East region?
Yeah, so one that stuck out to me was BYU, and correct me if I'm wrong, Duquesne, right? Is the 11th seed? That's how you say it?
Yes.
Yep.
So BYU has a guy named Jackson Robinson, used to play for the Hogs, absolute shooter. BYU did pretty good for their first year in the Big 12. Was pretty hot on them until I did a little bit more research on Duquesne and who their coach is. If you guys didn't know, he used to be the high school coach of LeBron James.
Oh,
So that just flipped a switch with me and said, this guy creates winners. We're going with the Dukes, and they're going to take over BYU. I'm looking forward to that matchup. And then I think hopefully that'll be a good one to match up with Illinois as well in that next round.
Yeah. Okay, what are you looking at here?
I'm looking at the possibility of a matchup of 2 teams that were in the Final Four a year ago. That 1-8, UConn FAU. I mean, it's a toss-up at which FAU team shows up, but that has the possibility of being an awesome basketball game. And UConn, obviously, number 1 seed, very common pick to win it all. And I have a feeling they're either going to win it all or they're going to lose that game to FAU, and there is nothing in between. So that is a game I have my eyes on. Possible trouble area for UConn.
Yeah, absolutely. That will be an interesting matchup in just the second round. I touched on Drake versus Iowa State. That matchup obviously being a big one. But the other matchup I'm looking at is the potential of an Elite 8 matchup with a trip to a Final Four. That UConn Iowa State. UConn has been one of the best teams all year, constantly 1 through 3. And then we got Iowa State, who seems to be coming on at the right moment. So looking at that matchup is definitely one I am looking forward to. But we kind of already mentioned the upsets. A lot of us like Duquesne and Drake as a whole. We'll move on to the dark horse, like a team not a lot of people are expecting to come out of this gauntlet of a region. Let's call it how it is. But Tanner, if you had to go with a team in this bracket, who would it be for your dark horse?
Yeah, obviously we've talked about Drake and how I have them going to the Sweet 16. I think they'll take out Iowa State, but a team in here that is kind of on fire right now and played like it in their conference tournament. And I don't hear a lot of chatter about them. They will have an early matchup against UConn if things go the way we expect them to. But this Auburn team, man, they're playing good basketball. And they took down a red-hot Florida team in the SEC title game.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, what Bruce Pearl brings to a basketball game. So I'm looking at Auburn. I mean, obviously, a 4 seed, is that really a dark horse? I don't know. But I just feel like not a lot of people are talking about Auburn, and they're a good basketball team. And again, the matchup with UConn will be a tough one, but I think Auburn can make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, Auburn's a team not to be taken lightly. Erich, what about you?
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I think them possibly meeting up with San Diego State could be a great matchup. Then UConn, I mean, like you said, this is a gauntlet of a region. One that I like, again, dark horse is, this is a 3 seed with Illinois, but their leading scorer in what's his name? Terrence, is it Shannon, right?
Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yeah.
Absolute dog.
That guy has been to the tournament. He was with Texas Tech and they lost. And then they was with Illinois and they lost. And I think that he has matured. He knows what it takes now. I could see them making it to the Elite Eight, facing UConn. I got UConn coming out of this bracket just because they are so strong, but I could see Illinois making it there.
Yeah, that's also my dark horse. You kind of mentioned why I think so. Terrence Shannon Jr. We saw what he did in the Big Ten tournament. Absolutely cooked everyone he played.
I think we're all in agreement on that one because one of the main reasons I said Tucker Reeves will be the best basketball player on the court against Iowa State. He will not be.
Yeah.
Terrence Shannon Jr. He had 40 against Nebraska in the semifinal. Can score from all over the field, an absolute nightmare for any defender. So
yeah, absolutely. But let me hear it. Who y'all have coming out? Erich said UConn. Are you in agreement?
I am. There was a minute there where Houston kind of had control of the top dog in the nation. UConn has just been. They've been the most consistent. They lost the game to a surging Creighton team in Omaha, and then they went down to 3, and everyone stopped talking about them as the best team, and then they just went on, dominated their conference tournament in typical UConn fashion. So I got the Huskies here. No reason to overthink it.
Yeah, I am going a little different. I talked about the matchup I'm going to be seeing I hope to be seeing in the Elite Eight. I have Iowa State. I'm really buying into this Iowa State hype. Probably going to bite me in the butt later on. They'll probably lose to Drake, but I got Iowa State coming out of here. I trust TJ and that defense. And Iowa State, as always, since TJ's been there, has been that defensive lockdown team, but they also have some offensive weapons with the surgence of Tamin Lipsey, Milan Momcilovic, and, of course, Keyshawn Gilbert. But that's who I got coming out of the East. Let's move on to the West region with UNC being the number 1 seed. Erich, what matchups are you looking forward to most in this region?
Man, I think a pretty common one is that Mississippi State, Michigan State. I think that 8-9 is just one for the ages. Mississippi State played super well, obviously, in the SEC tournament. And then Michigan State, it's March. It's Izzo's time. As soon as he gets to the tournament, he just becomes a different beast. So that's one that I'm looking forward to. I know that Clemson, New Mexico is probably going to be a fun one. But, the West it's a pretty exciting one between the 1 through the 4. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Tanner.
Yeah, I mean it's must see TV. Mississippi State fresh off of massacring Tennessee in the conference tournament, obviously going up against Izzo, as you said. I'm really liking this Grand Canyon team, Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. I talked about that game a little bit. I think Grand Canyon is a team that possibly could go to the Sweet 16. So that one against St. Mary's, I mean, two very different styles of basketball between those two teams. So I'm curious to see which one wins out, because if a lot of points are scored, I like Grand Canyon. But if St. Mary's able to slow things down, play their style of game, get in the half court, run offense, I'm going with the Gales. But that's the game I'm looking at, because it could potentially unleash an underdog beast to win more than one game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking a little further down the road, since y'all kind of mentioned those first ones everyone's looking at. I'm looking at UNC versus Arizona. Caleb Love going against his old team in UNC, kind of left on some bad blood. Seeing that with a trip on the line to Final Four in North Carolina, I believe, is where that game's going to be played. So that is going to be box office. Arizona, UNC, 1 versus 2, always electric. But moving on, let's talk about some potential upsets. We talked about Grand Canyon, New Mexico is kind of the common ones we're looking at. But Erich, do you have any others that could possibly happen, or you have in your bracket?
So I didn't pick it. I'm still on the fence about it, to be honest, but you mentioned it with that Grand Canyon Alabama game. Alabama can't guard literally anybody. I think I could go out there and potentially score 15. So I saw a tweet that actually said if this matchup comes, the over under for it might be 300. So it would be an absolute electric offensive game. Alabama, they made it to the Sweet 16 last year, and I just don't know if they have the defensive stance to make it super far. But you never know. I mean, offense, if everyone gets hot on their team, they could easily average 100 in this tournament and end up beating UNC. So I think that's a potential upset that we could see in a great matchup too.
Yeah, Dan.
Now, my potential upset, one that I do have, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. UNC is vulnerable. They are the worst one seed on the board right now. There's a lot of argument. Iowa State should have gotten it. I'm not liking the heels in this situation. Give me the Bulldogs. I got them going to the Elite Eight. Mississippi State.
Wow. Wow. Okay. A little spice there. Wow. Okay. Upset. I mean, I'm not going any crazy here. I mean, we kind of talked about those, but Eric, I'm getting a feeling for a dark horse that you think could come out of this region. You kind of mentioned one in the East being Illinois. Do you have a dark horse coming out that could be coming out of the West, or you're not high on anybody?
I have a pretty standard. I mean, my Sweet 16 is the 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have UNC Arizona meeting up. One, just because I hope it happens. I think that matchup would just be awesome. And I've always loved Caleb Love and would love for him to drop 30 on his old team. So
yeah.
But no crazy dark horse for me in this region.
Yeah.
Get the Cowboys ready.
Dogs. Yeah.
Of course. I just finished talking about them. In that Sweet 16 matchup, got them going against Bama. That I do have Bama Grand Canyon. As Eric said, I went back and forth a lot. Over under set at about 350, but I went with the Tide. But I got them losing to Mississippi State. I like this what this team's going on. You look at their body of work, fresh off of the SEC tournament. Even before that, a lot of close games on the road in conference SEC. I said it last episode. Did not get enough love as a conference as a whole in college basketball this season. And Mississippi State, I think, is primed for a big upset win against UNC. And then to parlay that into an Elite Eight run. But then they run into Caleb Love in Arizona.
Yeah.
And Arizona's going to the
Yep. I got Arizona coming out of this one. Don't really have a dark horse. Eric, who do you got coming out of the West?
I also have Arizona. Kind of teetered back and forth, but yeah. I hope Caleb Love puts it on his old.
So. I think that's what everyone is hoping for. But moving up to the South region, Houston, the number 1 seed in this one with a Marquette at the 2. Eric, talk to me. What matchups are we looking forward to here?
Yeah, I think the Nebraska A&M is a great one to look forward to. Wade Taylor can drop 40, 50 points, honestly, anytime he wants to. It just some games he has 7 and some he has 45. So you just really never know what team is going to show up. And obviously, there's no way I say this guy's name right for Nebraska, but he has taken the world, not even the nation, the world by storm. I mean, I'm going on Twitter, Instagram, there's highlight videos nonstop of this kid. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want Nebraska to win that game. Just one, I hate A&M, and 2, I just hope it's a great game. So that's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I gotta jump. Totally agree with that. Keisei Tominaga, the absolute GOAT, the Japanese Steph Curry is his nickname. Little wrinkle in that.
The AD
Nebraska or former Nebraska athletic director Trev Alberts announced approximately 5 days ago he's leaving to go to Texas A&M. So their AD switching sides in this little mini rivalry. And then you go to the women's bracket. Who's Nebraska playing? Texas A&M.
No.
So
Oh,
in both the men's
awesome.
and the
Oh my
women's,
God.
they're playing each other with the athletic director.
The script
Flipping
writers
from
were
one-
going
Uh-huh.
crazy.
I mean, you can't make it up. So that is,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just going to be a lot of tension in that game, and probably some that a lot of people out there don't understand why it's so tense in that gym. But dude, another game I'm looking at, Florida, the possibility of Florida and Marquette. I think in that 7-2, probably, I mean, easily the best 7 seed. I think in Florida, maybe a team that was a little bit underseeded, and then Marquette, the team that I just got done talking about, is the most vulnerable 1 or 2 seed. I think that could be a possibility for some fireworks.
Yeah, I think Marquette is definitely an interesting one, especially with the Tyler Kolek injury kind of being up in the air. For me, I'm looking forward to this Texas Tech NC State game. Texas Tech, obviously coming from the gauntlet of Big 12 play, a tough physical team, and kind of already written a couple pages of that Cinderella story. NC State, no one expected them to be in this dance. They put on an absolute show in the ACC, leading to their run here. So that's definitely a matchup I'm looking forward to. We obviously mentioned the Wisconsin James Madison is one literally everyone's talking about. But let's talk. We kind of already mentioned some upsets. James Madison obviously being the biggest one here, but do y'all have any other potential upsets you could be seeing in this region? Tanner, we'll start with you.
Yeah, James Madison, Wisconsin, talked about it at length. I think that personally, I'm going to go with the Badgers in that game, but I can definitely see that happening. Similar with Duke, Vermont. I think I'm going to go with Duke, but Vermont might be able to win that game. Duke, probably one of the coldest teams in the nation, certainly in any of the top 4 seeds in any region. One of the coldest in the nation. But I mentioned Florida Marquette. I do have Florida winning that game.
I also do too.
Yeah. But other than that, it's for me, it's a relatively chalky region. Specifically, if leaning towards the Wisconsin and Duke side of those two kind of toss-up games. But Florida over Marquette is the biggest one I have here.
Yeah, Eric, what about you?
Yeah, like you said, I got JMU over Wisconsin. That's a pretty popular pick. But another one that we got to wait for the playing games is that Colorado Boise State.
Yeah.
If Colorado pulls that out and they look hot, I have them actually over Florida. They're like top 10, top 5 3-point field goal percentage. And Florida's biggest thing is rebounds. And if they come out hot and they're making threes, I can't see Florida coming back from that. So that's a potential matchup I have. I think the Florida over Marquette's probably a popular pick too. So, that could be a bracket buster for a lot of people if that were to happen. But, I think there's upset potential pretty much everywhere in this in regards to, the 9 over the 8, 12 over the 5, like you said, Vermont with an ice cold Duke, 11 over 7. I mean, it's left and right. So the South should be a fun one.
Yeah, I think the South definitely has the most potential for the most upsets. In fact, I got NC State not only doing 1 upset, but 2. I got them beating Texas Tech, and I just do not trust Kentucky. They couldn't stop a nosebleed, kind of like you were saying with Bama, Eric. They play 0 defense. I think when Arkansas, who sorry to hurt your feelings here, Eric, they scored what 102 to 111 was the final score, I want to say.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there.
And that's just very concerning. NC State, one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. I'm buying in again. The hot teams in conference tournament. I am buying in. But that is definitely one I'm looking at.
The DJ Burns jersey.
Dude,
it's in the mail.
Amazing. Shout out DJ Burns. Dude's a legend. But yeah, I just do not trust Kentucky. It is nice seeing Kentucky and Duke kind of being those teams that are on upset watch. But do y'all have a dark horse coming out of this? We kind of talked about Florida making a nice run. You mentioned Marquette not being a heavy 2 seed. But do y'all have any others here?
Yeah, I think Eric nailed it with Colorado. If Colorado wins that game, I'm very scared for my Florida to the Sweet 16. Part of the bracket here. I did it last year with FAU and Memphis. I had Memphis going to the Elite Eight. I just got the game wrong because FAU went here. And of course, Memphis was up 1 with like 20 seconds left. Anyway, I'm afraid of that happening again. But the winner of that game, primed for a run. Texas Tech, another team. Like you have them losing. And Texas Tech, North Carolina State. You said Kentucky is vulnerable. Texas Tech gets hot.
Yeah,
they're not the typical Texas Tech fall back, play defense kind of team. This team can score. This team can score the basketball. And
former Hawkeye Joe Toussaint.
They could end up going on a run too. So, yeah, I mean, there are certain games here where the winner might be able to do something. And even Wisconsin, James Madison.
Yeah,
another one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be by far the craziest region. I know East has 3 conference champions, but I think this just has no one really knows what's going to happen. But Eric, who do you have coming out of this region?
Yeah, so I got Houston coming out. I think just defensive wise, they're just unstoppable, truly. And I know you guys have been bashing Kentucky. I actually have them in the Elite Eight. I think if their guard play comes to play, which it's 50-50. You got a young team, but if they do, I could see them making an absolute insane run. And I have Marquette facing them in the Sweet 16, but again, I could see Colorado there. I could see Florida pushing through. So my lock of this was Houston. I can't see them not making it to the Final Four. So I'll knock on wood to that, though.
Yeah, I totally agree though with Kentucky. Their backcourt is probably one of the best in the country. With Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd, for sure. No one's denying that. I just don't trust them on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I just got done talking about how Kentucky is vulnerable. I have them making Final Four, by the way. I do. They are written right here, making Final Four. We talked about that Arkansas game. They gave up 102, ugly defensive basketball, but they scored 111. Because this team this is an elite offensive basketball team, as you said, all 5 starters averaging double figures. I mean, all they got to do is get hot, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like Cal, things aren't working out right now as far as Kentucky would like to in their runs in March. So I think after everything I said, Kentucky will get hot in that offense. I mean, they scored 117 against Alabama earlier in the year, 111 against Arkansas. It's an elite offensive team, and they can ride that to a Final Four. So I've got Kentucky.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this great backcourt of Kentucky. Let's talk about Houston, man. I think they have the best backcourt with LJ Cryer and Jamal Sheed. I think that Big 12 championship was a wake-up call. They've constantly been in the top 5, kind of being almost cruising through the Big 12. But I got Houston beating Florida to get into that Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, Samson will have his boys ready to play, especially after pumping.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, if it ends up being that Houston, Kentucky, though, with you got those young guards and against kind of some older guards at Houston, that is going to be one hell of a matchup.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
The matchup of basically the same logo. One's red, one's blue, one's an H, one's a K.
It's like the exact same.
All right. Speaking of letter logos, let's move on to the Midwest, where are we all in agreement Purdue is our least favorite number 1 seed? Can we all agree on that?
Oh, dude, they had me rooting for Wisconsin. A notion that makes me want to vomit just thinking about it. But I was rooting for Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament because we all know the ref treatment with Edie and all. It just boils my blood. So
yeah,
absolutely, I want Purdue to lose so bad.
Yeah. So Eric, obviously we're Big Ten with being Iowa fans. Is it as bad as everyone says it is with Edie getting the benefit of damn near every call?
I mean, Arkansas played them, so I will say we got the better end. It was very early, so I think the refs, even though he's been, with Purdue forever, the refs just sometimes kind of forget like how to ref the game with him in it.
Yeah.
I've seen so many clips of him just turning his back and mowing people over. And regardless of how big you are, that's a foul. Like it's an offensive foul day in, day out. And it depends on the refs that are calling that game and what they see and how they read it. So I think it's pretty bad some games. Then there's others where he fouls out, and I think 2 or 3 of his fouls shouldn't have been called. So I think it comes down to the refs that he gets and how that other team kind of plays into his hands or defends it well. So we'll see.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting how.
Yeah, Tyler Wall, one of the best players for Wisconsin, fouled out in that game on a play where he picked up Edey, who was off a screen and roll. He ran right into him, and they called a block because, of course, they did.
Yeah,
because of so.
Yeah, it is very frustrating watching that team, but they are the number 1 seed in the Midwest. But Eric, give me a matchup you're looking forward to here.
Oh, I think there's a few again in this one. I think Gonzaga and McNeese. I think again we've said that that's a pretty popular upset, but Gonzaga's obviously not going to go down without a fight, so I think that's a good one. And then that Kansas Samford. I think Kansas just isn't as strong as people think they are, just with injuries. But if they do come out healthy, I could see them, absolutely killing Samford. So those are 2 that I'm looking forward to.
It's either going to be like a 2-point Samford win or Kansas is going to be a by 40, and there's no in between.
Yeah. And everyone's going to be biting their tongue who said that Kansas might get killed by Samford. So we'll see.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm looking at the top of this bracket, and I mean the top seeds of this bracket, and Purdue, Tennessee, and Creighton, the 1, 2, and 3, because these are all schools who, simply put, don't get it done in March.
Yeah.
So, will one of them actually get it done? That's the big question here. Any different combination of those 3 teams in the Elite 8, Purdue, Tennessee, Purdue, Creighton. I think that would be pretty awesome. And Kalkbrenner for Creighton, another big body. Maybe he can help defend Zach Edey a little bit and for Creighton. But that's fascinating to me is which team at the top will be able to break through, or will it be maybe the 4 to the 5 Kansas or Gonzaga teams who have been there before but are kind of having down years this year? So that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think an interesting matchup I'm looking at is in the second round. I got South Carolina and Creighton facing off. I think that's just going to be an interesting one. And then Texas, Tennessee. I think Texas kind of was underwhelmed by their season this year. Again, I've said like 45 times this episode, but the Big 12 gauntlet. And Tennessee, who I don't know how I feel about Tennessee. Dalton Connect, obviously, is a dog, but it seems he needs some help, and he didn't get that in the SEC tournament. And look what that got him. But totally agree. Purdue, Creighton, battle of 2 big men. I got that in my Elite 8. But that is definitely the big matchup I am looking at. But Eric, you talked about McNeese kind of being a big upset pick for a lot of people. Do you have any other big upsets in this region?
I got Oregon over South Carolina. Them at the 6 just feels weird to me. They played Auburn earlier this year, and obviously that you have off games, but I mean, they lost by like 30, and they were top 15 at that point. And again, off games happen, but to lose by 30 like that, I don't know if I've seen a team like that kind of do that. But I have Oregon. Another one I have is Texas over Tennessee. Like you said, Tennessee just with what's his name as their coach. I can't think of his name right now. He just does not get it done in March. Yeah, he just
Texas.
Exactly. So I mean, some people are saying it's his getting back his old team, and Tennessee just doesn't do it for me. So I have Texas getting to the Sweet 16 and facing off against Creighton.
Yeah, I also have that. Tanner, you got any Any big upsets?
Ones we've talked about already. I do have that Oregon over South Carolina. I also have that Stanford over Kansas.
Love it.
Yeah, it could be definitely primed for an old takes exposed there. I thought about the McNeese Gonzaga. I looked more into McNeese. I mean, obviously the record looks great.
Yeah.
Body work might not have been there from a schedule standpoint, and also talked about Will Wade. I think he might already have one foot out the door looking for that next big time job. So I do.
So he can cheat again.
So he
He's not cheating anymor with NIL. He's not cheating. He was cheating before. It wouldn't be cheating anymore.
That's true. He'll find a way. He was a pioneer of NIL.
Yeah.
But it's funny. You have Texas over Tennessee. There's always that one team. Nobody, and I mean nobody, wants them in the field. For me, it was
oh no, don't do it. Don't do it.
Colorado State. I was all over it. Michigan goes to the Sweet 16. Virginia is winning two games because everybody in the world wants them them in the field. So they will be in the round of 32 because of course they will.
That's disgusting. With the total score of those two games, 80 points.
It's the Virginia paradox, man. It's the Virginia paradox.
It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, this is, I think, one of the weaker brackets this March Madness. I actually have two upsets. McNeese, Samford, I have in the second round. If that happens, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have McNeese going to the Sweet 16. The more I talk about it, the more I'm regretting my picks here. But who do y'all have coming out of the Midwest? Eric?
I have Creighton. And I'm always saying that history repeats itself, and when the 1 seed lost to the 16, they won the next year. That's only happened once, but I got Purdue going to the Elite Eight and then losing to Creighton. It was kind of a toss up for me. It just depends on if Purdue kind of gets those calls with Zach Edey, and they could easily, I think, lose. I have Kansas going to the Sweet 16, and if they're that hot, I could see them pulling off the upset against Purdue, but I got Creighton coming out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I would be a little different, but I also have Creighton coming out of that Midwest bracket over Purdue in the Elite Eight.
Well, you're not different at all because I have the exact same thing.
We're all screwed.
We all just hate Zach Edey.
That too. But I mentioned Kalkbrenner, really skilled big man for Creighton. The ability to stretch the floor. That's not something Zach Edey has played against. And how Matt Painter and Purdue will adjust. Will they go zone? I mean, if they do that, maybe then someone like Baylor Shireman for Creighton, excellent 3-point shooter. Maybe he can take over the game and zero in. And I think all of that's a possibility. So I'm going with the Blue Jays and Greg McDermott.
Yeah, I got Creighton, like I said. So, Eric, we kind of broke down all these regions, looked at upsets, looked at dark horses, looked at all these potential matchups. So I need to run it by one more time. Who is your Final Four? Who do you got in the championship? And who you got being crowned champion?
Final Four, I got UConn facing off against Arizona. Coming out of that, again, I think Caleb Love really just wants to get to that natty, really just prove, how good of a player he actually is. And then on the other side, I got Houston facing off against Creighton. I got Houston winning that one, and Houston will be hoisting the trophy at the end of the 2024 March Madness Championship.
Tanner?
Yeah, coming out of the East, I've got UConn. They're facing off against Arizona. In there, I got UConn winning that game. And on the other side, Kentucky and Creighton. The battle of the 3 seeds, I'm going with Kentucky. And then UConn, Kentucky, a rematch of the national title game when Shabazz Napier won it for UConn. And I think Danny Hurley will be cutting down the nets again. They're going back-to-back. First time since Florida. I mean, Danny Hurley is he's just a freak. He is a freak. And I know, everybody wants to win. And when you win, you want to win again. But I truly think that he has had many sleepless nights thinking about getting back to that title game. And I think he's cut from a different cloth. So
yeah,
UConn and Danny Hurley.
What game was it? Some fan was talking crap
Yeah.
to him, and he's like, "Come on down."
Talk back to fans. You can piss on the side.
Yeah.
This dude is just built differently.
Yeah, and UConn couldn't be a more perfect fit. Unfortunately, I do not have UConn coming out of the East. I have Iowa State. I think whoever gets out of that region is just going to be battered to death. I have Arizona coming out of the West. Caleb Love, that's all you need to know. I have Creighton coming out of the Midwest, and I have Houston coming out of the South. I got Iowa State beating Arizona, and I got Creighton beating Houston. I got ISU Creighton. Give me the Blue Jays winning it all.
Wow.
I just like their path a lot.
Greg McDermott beats his old team, huh?
I didn't even think about that. It's all about storylines in
All
March.
about storylines.
It's all about storylines. You know what I'd love to see? Purdue lose round one. That's my dream.
That would be
Again.
unbelievable. Truly,
Again.
it really would be.
Dude.
Maybe it's the wrong back-to-back. It's not UConn going back-to-back. It's Purdue going back-to-back.
Hey, I've read it's the year of back-to-backs. You got Kansas City. You got the Nuggets are favored again. UConn is a heavy favorite. Could be the year of back-to-backs. You never know.
I'd cry.
That would be your one shining moment as Purdue losing back-to-back 16 seeds.
You take the Kobe picture with his bracket. Purdue losing the 16.
For real. But that's gonna wrap it up for episode 124. It's the best time of year. March
Absolutely.
Madness. And whoever says NBA is better, you're wrong. That's an unfathomable statement, to be honest.
Whoever says it's better than whoever actively tries to turn college basketball into the NBA by taking away things like court storming and all that stuff is just, again, unfathomable is the best word to use because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. March Madness, Cinderellas, shining moments, upsets across the board. It kicks off on Thursday when this episode will drop. Erich, thank you so much for coming back for this special episode. We loved having you on again. You are our first reoccurring guest, so shout out. But in the meantime, you can follow us on TikTok, X, and Instagram at crunchtime_pod. Like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and let us know who you got in your bracket. But the clock has run out on this one, and we'll see you on the next one on Crunch Time.
Peace.